But anyway, thank you for this chance. So I get the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, and that is Artie Munson. And he is the current CEO of LeafLink. He is also the former CFO of Time Warner Cable. He is also the former COO and co-president of WeWork. But the one he may not be the most proud of, but I guess I'm most proud of, is that he started his career with us at Ernst & Young. And he's also managing partner of 715 Capital Investment. So he is very familiar with this space and an organization that invests in early stage companies and provides operational and strategy advice. So let's have a nice warm Charlotte welcome for our guest Artie Munson. There he is. Hey, thank you, sir. All right. If anybody knows me, I follow no rules. I follow no organization. So we're just going to wing it, and there's no way in hell I'm going to figure out how to use this. So if anybody has a question, you can raise your hand. I'll call on you. And honestly, I prefer it. Okay? So, Artie, why don't we just jump in and help this crowd get a better understanding of what LeafLink is, and let's just start with that, so we level set as to the organization that you are now a part of.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So LeafLink is the de facto B2B marketplace for legal cannabis in the U.S. So what that means is we connect licensed brands to licensed retailers and help them facilitate transactions. We then, as we facilitate those transactions, there are additional products and services that we offer those companies. On the brand side, we can help them with advertising to retail stores. On the retail side, we provide them data and analytics on products that are moving in their particular geography. Because of the nature of cannabis and the fact it is legal in 23 states recreationally, but it's federally illegal, you should think about our marketplace business as running 23 separate marketplaces, because product, in Oregon can't move into Nevada. So we run these marketplaces separate and distinct. Everyone is licensed on our marketplace. And, over the last few years, what we've also gotten into is things like what I'll call the CFO services for companies in the space. So we started with offering a payments platform. So if you're a brand, you're selling to a retailer, the retailer may have 90-day terms to pay you. We provide the ability for you to get paid up front by, effectively securitizing that receivable. We're also launching later this year a banking as a service product. Banking is a really tough thing for this industry. Again, you can't walk into a JP Morgan or Bank of America and get an account. The banks who tends to bank this industry are credit unions, smaller regional banks where it's legal in that state. So we've been working again about bringing banking products to the industry. The other thing we spend a lot of time on is just, again, the logistics of the industry. If you think a lot about, people focus on the brand and the retailer side, there's a lot that has to happen with, product being shipped from point A to point B, product being stored. And we've built a lot of technology, again, to facilitate what we call brand and retail fulfillment in the space. So what started as just your basic vertical software marketplace business, we have morphed our technology into solving some of the bigger pain points that the industry is facing.
So I promised this audience which I'm going to go out on a limb here and say nobody in the audience is in the cannabis business. I'm not saying you're not in the recreational cannabis use, but that's a whole different conversation for a different day. But I promise you that as we continue our conversation, we're trying to try to connect the dots. Because when all's said and done, you know, I think this theme of technology and the way that LeafLink makes its connections, in this case between the growers and the retailers, I think is very portable and relevant, and we'll try to stay on that point. So you talk a lot about technology. Why don't we stay on that and maybe perhaps give some perspective on, you know, not maybe the nuances of the technology, but how the technology is playing into all of the things that you're doing to try to help your customers.
Sure. So what you've seen, again, in the B2B, just B2B marketplaces in general, is this concept of specialization and building software for that particular vertical and super serving that vertical. And so we are hyper-focused on our particular industry and really providing the best marketplace experience and the best vertical software, we think, in the space on the wholesale side of the industry. So what does that mean, and what are the advantages, and what's the return on investment of you know, being a LeafLink customer? If you're a brand, normal brand, you got to hire a sales force, they got to go into stores, they need to figure out ways to promote their product. If you have a captive marketplace audience, meaning the 15,000 licensed retail stores in the country, you have the ability to reach them in a really targeted way. You can do that just by having a subscription on the marketplace. You can then also decide to advertise your products even more directly to purchasing managers on the marketplace. So if you think about the return on investment for a subscription to LeafLink for, call it $1,000 a month, there's probably a number of employees you may not need because it is a much more targeted sale. Similarly, on the retail side, we have the ability, you know, we like to say if you're a retailer, our view is if you work with LeafLink, we'd like to think all you really need are sort of keys to open the door. We can make sure you get the right inventory at the right times, that you're getting the inventory that we know in your particular areas will move the best. We help you on analyzing your SKUs. And again, from a return on investment perspective, you know, you should be able to run a much more efficient and more profitable operation by partnering with a software provider like LeafLink.
That's great. I know we talked, when you and I were out in the hall, a little bit about the unique regulatory environment or the uniqueness, and you touched on it maybe a little bit in your opening remarks, but maybe we could dig a little bit deeper into it and maybe perhaps, you know, help the audience understand how LeafLink helps its customers kind of think through that, because it's clearly a unique, and if I think I'm right, you said it's like opening up a liquor store after Prohibition.
Yeah.
Right, so not to steal your thunder, because I know I got
Yeah,
wrong,
so, you know, so cannabis on a federal level has been illegal since, you know, it became a Schedule I narcotic with the Controlled Substances Act back in the 1970s. And it wasn't until, I think it was 1996, that, you know, it became, from a medical standpoint, legal in California. Then in 2012, it became recreationally legal in Colorado, effective in 2014. So LeafLink has been around since 2014. And, you know, we work very, very closely with the state governments as they think about launching cannabis in their states. And, you know, again, there are a lot of social and economic and medicinal benefits that the states have realized by launching cannabis in their states. But there are a lot of different ways that when a state launches, a lot of different decisions they have to make. Do they want to, for example, have this be an unlimited license market, sort of what we call them like free market states, where the licenses are not controlled by 5 or 6 big companies who control all the brands in the states, they control all the retail stores in the states, and it's someone looks like an oligopoly. Would they rather have states where it's much more open to competition? There may be caps where people can't open more than 2 or 3 retail stores. The retail stores can't control the brands. And we are a big fan of sort of more of the free market states. We've worked very closely, for example, in New York, as they've launched their cannabis program, and they have done a great job again of just sort of identifying a lot of the social and economic issues in the past, and have designed a program we think that tries to address many of those issues. So we are seen by the states as a very close partner. To be on our platform, you need to, as I said, be a licensed brand or a licensed retailer. Challenges I think a lot of the states are facing is, frankly, how to deal with the illicit market. If you look at, for example, in New York right now, there are 11 legal stores, and there are about 1,500 illegal stores. They are selling product that is not authorized to be sold. The states have gone in, they've tested some of that product. You'll find everything from bacteria and other issues in the product, whereas if you go to a licensed cultivator, like you'll be wearing like the equivalent of an Ebola suit to go in. It's the most regulated industry on the planet. And so how the states think about balancing the need to add legal stores and at the same time begin to crack down on the illicit market is something they're spending a lot of time thinking about.
So you're a testament to something that I often say, and that is, I think people in general underestimate how smart they are, and how the things that they do every day are portable to very different things, right? And if we think about your background in cable or real estate, you now find yourself in this industry. Help me understand a little bit of your journey, but what are the things that you were able to take from your previous experiences to apply here, and maybe on the flip side, what is something that you really had to learn again for the first time?
Yeah, look, my background is basically technology-enabled subscription businesses. If you take AOL, if you take Time Warner Cable, my time at Cablevision, that was subscription businesses with a technology, either overlay or underlay, has been pretty much what I've done. On the telecom side, it was a highly regulated industry. We had local regulators at the city level. We had national regulators at the FCC level. And so I think when LeafLink was trying to figure out, okay, what were the types of personas that made sense, someone who understood software businesses, technology businesses, but had navigated regulated markets was something that was important to them as they thought about the job description. So I think, for me, understanding technology and understanding how to work with regulators, particularly as they think about a growth market such as this, I think that served me personally well in this. In things I've had to learn, look, I am a neophyte on this industry. I had to really get myself up to speed on a lot of the history of the industry, what the challenges that whether you're a brand or retailer that they're facing, At the end of the day, though, what companies want, whether, it's when they talk to, a company like EY and the consulting, they want someone to help solve their problems, and they want to understand, like, well, what's the return from doing that? And so, what we've been able to do is carve out a very good niche as someone who has built technology that makes the industry better, and it allows it to run more efficiently, and it allows companies in the space, I'll call it, to specialize. I think one of the really hard things about this industry, if you think about cable, there were companies who ran the infrastructure. That was Time Warner Cable. There are companies who then bring that infrastructure to life. That's what an HBO does or what a Google does. They run along the pipes, and then there are companies who build, set-top boxes for the industry. There are companies who put satellites in the sky. There's a whole ecosystem, and people specialize. In the cannabis industry, because of the federal illegal overhang, a lot of companies have, out of necessity, had to vertically integrate. So they are trying to be great cultivators of product. They're trying to be brand builders. They're trying to build their own technology. They're trying to run retail stores. And each one of those is really, really hard. So our view of the industry has been that over time, you will see more specialization. You will see the emergence of, these are the retail store brands, these are the tech companies, these are the great consumer brands in the space, and these are the great cultivators. And so I think it'll be an investment banker's dream to do work in this space, but I think a lot of the companies will need to be rationalized. And where we want to play is really on that technology piece of it, and really be the technology layer for the industry that makes it run more efficiently and allows for this specialization.
Yeah, and if you think back to what I said a little while ago about the relevance and portability of that conversation, everything that Artie just said, I could plug in any other industry and I would be relatively on track, right? And I always laugh. A couple of years ago when I met the company in South Carolina that makes the can for Pringles, right? Because I just assumed Pringles made their own cans, right? And you're right, it's all part of this different ecosystem. And I think as in this audience of entrepreneurs or growth companies, trying to solve for a problem, you don't have to solve for the entire problem, right? You just have to solve for a piece of the problem that makes the overall experience for a particular industry just better, right? So they're not trying to be everything to everyone in the retail space. They're trying to be, a very particular niche in that space. So just because I know we talked about it out in the hall, right? You were not necessarily looking to be the CEO of another company, and just maybe share with a little bit of the story you were sharing with me and how this came to be for you. Yeah. Because I think everybody, I look at it as, listen, you can seek things or things can find you, right? And you just have to be open to them when you find them. Or you can trip over them too, right? I guess, but, and I feel like you weren't looking for this.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So I had been the CFO and the COO at AOL, and that was a really tough public company turnaround. But we got lucky a bit. We did some things that, in the last 2 years I was there, the stock basically, 4x'd, and then I went to Time Warner Cable, and we wound up, selling that company. And it was interesting. The Time Warner Cable job was sort of a dream job of mine. I had grown up, frankly, at Time Warner Cable. I left to become the CFO of AOL. It was under the Time Warner umbrella, and they were taking it public, and they asked me to go do that, and I did that. And then I came back to Time Warner Cable, thought that would frankly be like a 20-year job. And we sold it, and then I was like, 45 years old, and it was like, all right, what am I going to do here? And I went to WeWork as the president. I got there, I was probably about employee 150. We were doing like 100 million in revenue. And, 4 years later, we were at 4 billion in revenue. And, for all the craziness of Adam in the last year or so, it's still, it's a great product with a great brand, but it was a pretty crazy 4 years. And so I basically said like, okay, I'm gonna really focus on just doing some personal investing and advising. I was close with a number of venture capital and private equity firms, and they would basically ask me to come in side by side on them with deals and mentor co-founders in industries where I had some expertise. So again, it was like, okay, this is a tech-enabled subscription business. Let's bring, Artie into this deal and have him sort of either join the board or work really closely with the founder. And, we did probably close to about 10 investments and was sort of loving that. And it's interesting though, it is definitely different from being on the playing field than being sort of like in the bleachers, sort of, giving advice to someone and seeing like maybe sometimes they execute the play that you thought maybe they execute a different play. And I was not itching to get back, but it was just different. It's different between like you own this one company and you're spending all your time there. Then you have 10 companies, you talk to each one of them like once every week. And so I got connected to LeafLink. I went to this small Jesuit high school in New York City. The founder, it's a really tight like alumni network. The founder, about 20 years younger than me, was also came out of that school. And I sort of knew of him. I then was sort of like advising him on the side, and it was like, would you ever do this? And I'm like, I'm probably not gonna do this. And then I got convinced to join as president, spent a lot of time with the board. And then last year, we raised $100 million, which raising that amount of money last year, that was not easy. We had some great investors who came in who sort of believed in the vision for the company and where the industry could go. And at that point, I moved into the CEO role, and the founder moved into the chairman role. So it's been, again, things happen in your career, things you didn't expect. I never thought I'd be running a cannabis tech company, but it is a fascinating industry. Not many industries, right now, this year, this industry will probably do $30 billion from a retail perspective. By 2030, we think it'll be $100 billion. So there's not a lot of growth out there. There's not a lot of industries that probably have the regulatory complexity or the business complexity right now. And so I like interesting problems, but yeah, it's been a wild ride.
So were you disappointed when they made the TV show from Apple TV for WeWork that you weren't in it?
I was, people who worked with me know I fly pretty under the radar, and so people, did joke to me. They're like, "You were there for 4 years as president. You weren't portrayed in the movie." I'm like, "That's just, be under the radar."
Fair enough. So, we can flip between LeafLink, but in your travels and obviously as your managing partner role at 715, you work, and even in the story you just told, you've mentored or coached a lot of different entrepreneurs and different VC-backed type companies, and I'm sure some of them have done well and some have not. So what have you seen? Is the lessons learned for the ones that have done well, and maybe the lessons learned for some that have not done well?
I think that the need for hyper focus is really important. I think that, look, at LeafLink, it was a tough year last year, and we had to do a number of sort of reductions in the size of the team because there were parts of the business that we got into that on their own makes sense, but in that specialization, did they make sense for us to be in? And we were becoming sort of a mix of a technology company and more like an operator of businesses. And basically I was like, look, we got to become amazing at the tech we're building. We're taking a little bit our eye off the ball on frankly, the tech and software. And to do that, we're not going to do these things. We're going to partner with other people and let them be experts in that. And so I think that, you know, the different founders I've worked with, the ones who are basically able to like maniacally focus on this particular, you know, area, like, and keep blinders on the other stuff. And then I think the other thing, which I just spend a lot on, is like the teams who are around you. Like you just have to make, you know, you have to identify like, these are the things I'm really good at, and then I have these gaps, and I need to get people around me who can sort of fill in some of those gaps.
So I do apologize. I'm sure if there's questions getting funneled into this iPad, somebody much smarter than me would know how to do it. But if there is a question, please, yeah, please.
Partners, strategic alliances.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Thank you.
on the partnership side, and I'll tell you like 2 changes we made to the business last year, which was the logistics of this industry, again, is really, really hard. You know, for example, if you're moving product from a warehouse to a retail store, some states require you, for example, to have 2 drivers in that car. They have to be licensed drivers. Like everything is harder in this industry. And so we began to go out and build with partners. We are in industry verbiage. We are a non-plant touching company. We don't hold any cannabis licenses. And that's, again, if we want to go, you know, public on the New York Stock Exchange, you know, today being a non-leaf touching company, that gives us, you know, the ability to go do that. But what we were doing is we were going out, we were like partnering with folks and saying, hey, look, we'll lend you some money. You go buy the trucks, you go get the warehouses, and it's just a much more capital intensive piece of the business for us. Similarly, on the payment side, we were taking more balance sheet risks, going out and sort of saying like, we'll help you securitize these receivables, but if you don't pay, we'll take the bad debt exposure thing. And that just, those are good businesses. They're not good businesses for us. So we restructured those, and we basically now have like a payments partner who, again, if in our product flow, you know, if you're a brand and you're selling to a retailer, we can say, hey, how would you like to get paid for that now? We have a partner who, you know, they are basically willing to fund you that money today. They'll take a fee for that, and they'll share a portion of that fee back to us. Similarly, on the logistics side, where we've gone to basically companies and said, look, we're going to allow you to plug into our network, and you can offer your products and services on our network, and in exchange for that, we will, you know, share revenue with you. That's not dissimilar to, frankly, like when I was at cable, we would say to HBO or Showtime, like, you can come in, you can sell your products and services to our customer base. We'll actually help you sell them, but we're going to take, you know, a meaningful rev share for that. So again, we're looking for partners, and I mentioned banking as a service. That's another place where obviously we're not a bank. We don't want to be a bank, but there are banks who are willing to provide banking solutions to the industry that, you know, we have an embedded base that we can market to and sell that product to.
No, we're good? No, go ahead, please, Ethan.
So I know you talked a lot about regulations. North Carolina, obviously, being one of the states where cannabis is not
We tend to wait until there is the decision on it going legal. We sort of put that in the state's hands and that market's hand. To the extent that once a state goes legal, then a couple of things start to happen, and we've seen this playbook sort of over and over. Is you need to basically have cultivators come in, so they need to give cultivator licenses, they need to give brand licenses, and they need to give retail licenses. What has happened time and again in numerous states, what we see is states will go legal, there tends to not be then enough supply in those states. Prices go through the roof. Then there's too much cultivation, prices crash. And then it begins to sort of normalize itself out. So the interesting thing we will see, for example, right now, like prices in Missouri are like 3x the price in Illinois, because there's a shortage of product in Illinois, there's a shortage of product in Missouri, there's an abundance of product in Illinois, you have people driving over the borders, and so we basically, as I said, like we really have to, by the nature of our business, focus on super serving that particular state. Now, what we have, for example, in New York, it's coming on right now. What we're doing is signing up all of the new brands that are coming on in that state, and we're signing up the new retail stores in that state. What happens again, too, in the beginning when a state first comes on is we have a little over 50% share in the market. A lot of the share actually still happens of people texting each other and calling each other, and when the state first comes on, that still happens. It then gets to a scale where they say, we need technology tools to actually make this work, and that's where people come in and they then become LeafLink subscribers and users.
Do you get involved in the advocacy side for the states that don't have it?
We do not.
Okay.
We do not. We will, though, get involved with almost immediately once the state makes the decision. We will be one of the first calls of like, how does this work? What have you seen that didn't work in other states? What states have you seen it work? We are involved at the federal level. One of the things that we've been trying to get passed is the Safe Banking Act. And, right now, which is kind of crazy, is, it's gone legal from a state perspective, but the problem in getting bank accounts is, again, you have these retail stores, they'll be sitting on a lot of cash. It's not easy for them to bank. There have been robberies of these stores, and again, we're just basically trying to get the government to pass, safe banking, which will basically say, it's okay for the large banks to give us a bank account. For us, we're funded by some of the largest venture capital companies in the world. I can't, though, get a bank account at JP Morgan and Bank of America. So with all of the turmoil that's been in the regional banks, that's who generally banks us, and we have had to play the game of moving money around and making sure, our deposits are safe. So passage of safe banking, we're strong supporters of.
That's interesting. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the question was around seed to sale. So there are two, and to give you a little bit of the industry, if you're in and you're buying product in a licensed store, that product is tagged so that you can actually see exactly where that product came from. Again, it's like the most regulated industry around that. You can't sort of see generally where does, if you're going to buy milk, where did the milk come from and where the eggs come from, but you can tell exactly where this product comes from. And there are two systems out there that states require the cultivators to basically do business. One is called Metric, the other is called BioTrack. And so a state will there will be tags, each product will be tagged, and people will have to have their metric tags or their biotrack tagging on that. What we do is we integrate with their systems. So we track seed to sale through our integrations with biotrack and metric.
So it's a good add on to, because just can you talk a little bit more about the data and the data analytics and how much it plays into, you know, the data that you're capturing and how helpful it is and how you can use it?
Yeah, I mean, for us, again, when you look at B2B other B2B marketplaces, you know, you'll see that they have low single-digit share of sort of the overall transactions in that industry. We have over 50% share. So we have really, really good visibility into what is happening on the wholesale transaction side, what's happening on the pricing side, what's happening on who are good. You know, we also have visibility because of our payments business, who's in good financial shape, who's maybe struggling a bit. We have insights on inventory levels, who has high inventory, has low inventory. So we have really, really good visibility on the trends in the industry. We include as part of our basic subscription access to those data and analytics tools. We will be bringing to the market additional tools around data and analytics, but to the point where, as I said, like if you're a retailer, we should make it almost seamless for you from a purchasing order management system that we basically can tell you, like, these are the products that you should be buying in your store, given what we're seeing across the market.
So when you say that the industry is going to go to 100 billion, are you saying it's going to 100 billion because more states are going to become legal, or you think there's growth within the existing states?
I think more states will become legal. I think as well. So what you've seen in this market is over the last 18 months, pricing has come down about 40% in the market. And that's because the market got oversupplied. And the market is working through sort of that oversupply. I think, again, like a lot of industries, there was a lot of capital that flowed into the cannabis space. It is a dark time in the cannabis space right now. Not surprising, you're seeing, you know, technology companies go out of business. You're seeing brands and retailers go out of business. You're going to see supplies come down, and I think you'll start to see prices normalize. So there's going to be a lift just in pricing, but I think you will also, again, see more states continue to come on. I think the states see the economic benefits of it. They see the social benefits, and so as a result, I think they're going to continue to go legal.
I mean, I guess it's no different than, right, online gambling, right?
Yeah.
The states that are all jumping in on it.
Yeah.
And it's just too much revenue and taxes to turn it away. Any other questions? It's all good. All right, well, I don't have any more questions, so I guess maybe, Artie, as we think about parting words, or, you know, those last parting words to share with the group, as again, thinking about it as a group of entrepreneurs or advisors to entrepreneurs, and what might be some of your last thoughts to leave them with?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. So the other thing I should have just kind of mentioned, so my career has been, as I said, it's been these tech-enabled subscription business. It's also been dominated by working with entrepreneurs and founders. I think Ryan at LeafLink is about the 5th founder that I've gotten a chance to work with. And, you know, and I was speaking where I went to college recently, and I said, look, whether you go into banking, whether you go into consulting, if you're gonna go into a growth industry, you're gonna have to work with entrepreneurs. And I think, you know, congrats to all of you who've sort of, you know, started something and following your passion. And, you know, the thing I would just, again, it's hyper-focus, and then just make sure you get people around you who can help you, you know, achieve your mission. one of the first founders I worked with, the guy who was sort of the person's right hand, said to me, you know, our job is to be sort of the offensive tackles for the founder. They're the quarterback, and you're there to sort of basically, you know, make sure there's a clear path for them. And I think, again, just make sure you get the right teams around you, and just, again, stay hyper-focused.
Thank you. Everybody, it's a warm welcome to Artie, and
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I don't know what's next, so I'm hoping somebody smarter than me comes up here and moves you on your merry way as I return this iPad that I did nothing with. All right, you guys have a good rest of your day at conference.
Thank you.
Are we good? Thank you, sir. All right, I assume we'll go back here and give them the mics and stuff.